in the DC area, and I'll be talking to you about the filling the emotional tank. So I'll dive in and then interrupt me with any questions. I've already done the introduction, right? We'll just go to cool. So we've already done the introduction. The first principle on slide 23 that we'll be talking about is filling the emotional tank. So we'll actually move to slide 24, and I want you to read the quote for me. Oh, you don't have the PowerPoint. Kelly, I want you to read the quote for me on slide 24 from Maya Angelou. Can you do that for me?
Sure. It says, some people will forget what you've said, some people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll go pretty directly and pretty nicely in what we'll be talking about today with filling the emotional tank. So I want Jake or Molly, since I asked Kelly to read it for me, can you think of, or are there any coaches that you think of when Kelly just described that quote, specifically the part about never forgetting how you made them feel? Are there any of your either professional coaches that you know of or coaches that you've had that really embody that quote?
I actually had a coach in high school who was kind of embodied that quote, but in a negative way. He was a screamer, yeller, really not nice coach. And so, and I have not forgotten that the experience with him was a pretty negative one. Luckily, it didn't ruin the sport for me, but I think I definitely remember the feelings around that season more than I do almost anything else. So.
Interesting. So he definitely made you feel a certain way that wasn't a good way, but you remember how it made you feel. Pretty interesting. We'll talk through that and some strategies for making sure that you don't provide that same type of experience for other kids. Not that you would, because I know you're a great coach, but we'll talk through some strategies. Jake, anything that comes to your mind?
So the first time I went to a private infield instructor, a guy was like a bit of an infield guru teacher in our area. And after my first lesson, he said, "You got a chance to make it," when I was 13. It was the first time anybody ever told me anything like that. And it made me feel like I could do it. So I still remember that.
That's awesome. What a great story. And amazing that you still remember that from 13. But I guess when somebody tells you something so cool like that, something you always remember. Awesome. It shows the impact of what coaches can have and how important our job is as coaches to have that type of impact on our players. Awesome. So slide 25, we'll go a little bit more deeper into filling the emotional tank here, and principle number 1 of the 3 principles that we'll talk about during today's workshop. So filling the emotional tank creates that perfect environment for teaching and motivating our athletes. So Kelly, have you ever coached a team or a player that has underperformed?
Yes.
What were some of the characteristics of that team? What was the environment like surrounding those different players?
Specifically, I'm just thinking of this past season. I coached high school lacrosse, and I had a player that was either on or off. When she was on, she was great. When she was off, she was a head case. And this was like during preseason, I noticed it. And, she had so much, she was so athletic. She was in such great shape. She had awesome skills, but she would just get in her head. And then when something would go wrong, she would turn to somebody else and she would lash out at somebody else. So I noticed a lot of that, and the whole team could feel her tension. She was an upperclassman, she was a junior, and big presence on the team. And when she wasn't in a good mood, like the whole team knew it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that goes pretty nicely with what we talk about from an emotional tank standpoint with an empty tank. So athletes with an empty tank are pessimistic. They give up more easily. They're less coachable. And then on the flip side, athletes with a full tank, those are going to be your optimistic. They deal better with adversity and are more coachable. So as coaches, it's really our job to fill our athletes' tank. And as we described, filling the emotional tank, we want it to be on the full side, obviously not on the empty side, as Kelly described some of the bad things that can happen when athletes do have those empty tanks. So how exactly do we do it? And I'll kind of go through this exercise with the 3 of you. And I want to do a little bit of role playing and a little bit of a scenario that we'll go through. So you all are going to be all of my coaches, and you're all going to react at the same time as I ask you to do this exercise. So I'm going to be the player, and we're going to go through 4 different situations, and I'll describe how I want you all to react to this certain situation. each time. So it'll be the same situation each time. And I want you all to react in 4 different ways. So the first way that I want you to react is filling my tank by using words. So I'm going to say the situation in a minute, and I want you to fill my tank. Give me some positivity, some optimism, some good things using your words. So the situation here that we'll be going through 4 different times is it's the bottom of the 9th. I am the hitter up, 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, 3-2 pitch. I strike out, looking. So obviously not a great situation. We were down by 1. We lost the game, bottom of the 9th, I struck out. As coaches, I want you all to show me a little bit about how you'd respond using your words to fill my tank. So we'll start in 3, 2, 1. I want all of your participation. So Molly, Jake, and Kelly, I want all of you to give me a little bit about how you'd react in a positive, filling my tank way. So 3, 2, 1.
Sorry, Harris. Next pitch, flush it.
Awesome. I love it. Kelly, there are no more next pitches, but
that's true. next game, right?
Perfect. So that was great. Now what I want you to do is same exact situation. I want you to drain my tank. So with using your words, drain my tank. So similar to what you just did, but I want you to do some things that'll drain my tank. So all 3 of you again, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, that was terrible. My grandmother swings better than you.
Perfect. So you see the 2 differences in how we can react. And I know it's a little bit funny, but we can see that there's 2 different ways to react. And our normal reaction will probably be that negative one, because that's just how we're humans and we're wired to be that way. So how are we being intentional about being positive about how we're saying it? Now I want to go through 2 more situations. The other one that I want to go through, same exact situation, struck out, bases loaded, 2 outs. And I don't want you to say anything, but I want you to positively fill my tank. So non-verbal, but positively fill my tank. I want all 3 of you to participate again. 3, 2, 1.
All right, just shake it off. It's all good.
No verbal.
No words. I like that. Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. So that was the 3rd situation. You can see I'm feeling good about that. And the 4th situation that I want you to go through is I want you to drain my tank, but I want you to do it without saying any words. So no saying I swing like my grandma, like Kelly said, which I'm still hurting a little bit.
My grandmother's got a good swing, though. It could be a compliment.
Okay, that's fair. You're right. No judgment here. So I want you to drain my tank with non-verbal cues. So what can you do that's going to drain my tank without saying anything? 3, 2, 1. Perfect. So I appreciate you all going through that exercise, and it is a bit funny, but it does show the difference in how we can react and how it's important to be intentional about how we're reacting. And we know that athletes respond better with a full tank. So what are we doing as coaches to make sure that they're doing that? So if you're with me on that slide, we'll see slide 26, what drains the tank? Criticism, sarcasm, ignoring, a lot of the things that you all were doing when I asked you to be negative. And then some of the things that fill the tank, the truthful, the specific praise, the expressing appreciation, the listening, some of the different things that you all were showing to me in that specific exercise. So the other big thing that I want to mention, the reason why I did that 4 separate times and the 2 times at the end were nonverbal is because 90% of all communication is nonverbal. So we might think that we're being positive and trying to fill our athlete's tank when really our nonverbal communication is so negative. So it's something to be cognizant of and focusing on even in those important situations. So slide 27, what is the one thing most coaches can do to be more effective? So that's really what we'll be talking about today, and I'll dive a little bit further into this as we go on. So slide 28 talks exactly about this. So if coaching involves a combination of tank filling and tank draining, as we just talked about a little bit, what is the correct balance? So as you see on the slide, the correct balance is 5 to 1. So 5 positives to 1 criticism. And we call it the magic ratio here at PCA because magical things can happen when we get to that ratio, when we get to that ratio, so that 5 to 1 research, 5 to 1 positive to negative. So there's research in coaching, learning, and relationships, business that all point to this 5-to-1 ratio. And 5-to-1 does seem like a lot, but it's not that difficult when you think about all the nonverbal cues. When I said 90% of communication is nonverbal, that also adds into this 5-to-1. So any type of communication adds to that 5, or it could add to that 1. So that's something that we need to be cognizant of as we're showing different forms of communication. So slide 29, the one thing, and I mentioned this question on slide 27 and want to talk about the 5-to-1 ratio. So you obviously know what's coming here in slide 29. But the one thing most coaches can do to be more effective is increase their positive to negative ratio. So it's the single most important thing that coaches can do to be more effective is increase that positive to negative ratio. And it's going to strengthen your coaching overall. So Kelly, not to pick on you again, but you're the only one with the slide deck in front of you. So do you mind just reading slide 30 for me from the legendary Phil Jackson?
No problem. It says, about that time, Jim's book shows up and positive coaching becomes an influence in my life. The 5-to-1 ratio, 5 praises to 1 critique. And of course, the rest we know is that these Bulls won 3 championships in a row.
Awesome. Phil Jackson, absolute legend. Probably not really a legend with the Knicks, but legend otherwise in his career. Legend as a coach, maybe not necessarily as a president, but who's there. So the most important thing that he says, I want you all to get in groups of 3. There's 3 of you. So I want you to share a little bit about what really resonates with you of that quote. And so now you all would pair off into groups of 3 and share. And I don't know, do y'all want to do that or?
That's okay. You can keep going. Yep. We said brilliant things.
Perfect. So we'll watch. Now I want us to watch this video that talks a little bit more about what Phil Jackson said. So we watch the video. The video goes great.
Yeah.
Now, slide 32. Let's put this principle into action. And so we'll talk about a little bit of a scenario, and I'll talk about on slide 33, receivable feedback. So you know that athletes thrive on positive feedback. We've talked about that, the 5-to-1 ratio, being positive, having 5-to-1 positive to negative. But your team has been struggling a lot and needs a lot of correction. So as a double coach, how can you give them the feedback they need to improve them without discouraging them? So if I was running this now, I'd probably have the groups pair off in groups of 2, talk through what they think about that. Talk through some thoughts there. I won't necessarily do that for you all because I don't think that necessarily makes sense. But we're all coming back together. So E-Tank Toolkit, we've talked about the emotional tank, how we fill it from the 5-to-1 ratio. But a big part of that is going to be about feedback and how, as coaches, we can give effective and feedback at the right time. So we have 5 major ways that we think about feedback at PCA, and we're on slide 34 right now. So first, avoid non-teachable moments. So those are usually those really high pressure or really big situations, striking out in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs, walking in a bunch of runs, things where your athletes are at high alert and they're feeling that pressure. Probably not the best time for us to give feedback. We want to give it at a time when the athlete's going to be receptible to it and be able to use it for success later on. Second here, criticize in private. We like to use the phrase praise in public, criticize in private. God, that's tough to say. Praise in public, criticize in private. Those are tough. But what we want to do is not get in the habit or really ever criticize our players in public in front of the team. It really just causes the player to feel a sense of anger and not something that we want to do as coaches. So if we're going to criticize, we want to do that in a private setting. And then when we're going to praise, we want to do that in front of their teammates. Third here, ask permission. So if we're going to give them feedback, ask first if it's okay from our athletes. Fourth here, use if-then statements. So if-then statements are results-driven. They tap into the player's desire to improve and succeed. 2 that I like, if you run to the far post, you'll have a better angle to score. If you box out, you'll have a better chance to grab the rebound. they're a good way to practice different statements. And actually, this is one that I want you all to share with me, maybe one that you think could work for your team. So Jake, I know it sounds like you're a baseball guy. Are there some and not to put you on the spot here, but are there some if-then statements that you think could work for your team, just so we can get some other thoughts going from the group?
Yeah, if you hit the cutoff man, we're more likely to keep the guys from scoring.
Love it. Love it. Molly, any that come to mind for you?
Yeah, soccer. If you strike with your laces, you're going to have more power behind your shot.
Awesome. Kelly, last but not least, a lacrosse one for me. I don't know much about lacrosse, so this would be good for me.
If you stay out wide on attack, you're more likely to be open for a pass and score.
Perfect. I love it. Appreciate you all sharing that with me. That's probably the one that we like. I wouldn't say we like the most at PCA, but the one that I like most because it's results driven and helps you think about some of the ways that you can talk with your athletes. And then the last one might be familiar to some of you, but the criticism sandwich. So you start with a positive, you go with a negative, and then you end with a positive, so that you're making sure that you're keeping your athletes' attention by not just draining them with a lot of different negative thoughts. We talked about that 5-to-1 ratio. At least here with a little bit of criticism, you're getting to 2-to-1. Obviously, you want to continue to increase that up, but a good way to make sure that you're not just constantly hammering them with some negative criticism. Any questions on any of the tools for effective receivable feedback? Okay. Slide 35 here, tools to help you reach that positive to negative ratio, the magic number, the 5-to-1. I talked a lot about how important that is for you. Phil Jackson talked about how important it is for him and how it changed him to be one of the best coaches ever. So I want to talk a little bit about some tools that can help you reach that ratio. So 3 tools here that we'll talk about. The first one is the buddy system. So this is where you can have your players pair up in practice or in games, and you want to make sure that they're aware of how important it is to be positive with each other. But you want each person to be accountable for being positive with that other person. So basically, Johnny and Jim are going to be paired up together, Mark and Sam, and it's really their job to make sure they're constantly driving positivity with their partner. So make sure that's important, that's driven in from the beginning. The second one here is positive charting. So really, this is a great way for you to stay up to date and understanding of what's going on either at the practice or the game. So we recommend going through this, writing the name of each player on a document that you have, looking for the positive things that player is doing, putting a dash next to them. Maybe here's the 3 good things that Johnny did really well during that game. And you want to make sure that it's honest and real. You don't want to just make things up for the sake of making things up. And you want to try, if at all possible, to have the same number of comments for all the different players on your team, because you want to get a sense where everybody's receiving that constant feedback and that positivity, that 5-to-1 ratio. You don't want a situation where it's just your best player receiving 25-to-1 and maybe your worst player is receiving 1-to-1. You want to make sure that you're looking out for things that maybe that not as talented of a player is doing well. So when are they backing up bases, or what are the hustle plays? When are they taking pitches in the right situations that you're making sure that you're writing down? And then you're going to share that with your players. So at the next practice or the next game, you want to have a quick meeting, share a little bit about what you thought. That way your players know that you're looking out, you're paying attention, and you're focused on some of the things that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. The last one that I'll talk through here is the winner circle. So right after a game is a perfect time for filling your players' tanks. So you'll get the group talking. It's a good way to get some of your athletes talking. Who noticed something that Johnny did that someone on our team did really well today? This is a great way to get players talking. What are some of the things that they're seeing? How are they filling each other's e-tanks? And just an overall positive team interaction you can build. As the coach, you'll probably go last. If you notice any players that aren't necessarily getting praise from other players, how can you build that in? And that kind of goes pretty well in line with the positive charting, where you should have something written down or some type of notes from different players that you can add into that conversation. So I know I walked through that relatively quickly, but did want to pause from the group and see if you all had any questions on filling the emotional tank before we dive into our next next competency.
No.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Thank you. All right. How'd you feel going through that?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, I felt pretty good. I tried to stray away from the script a little bit more. I was more scripted in the first one. I thought I tried to go more on my own, but then I recognized there were times when I was going to say, this is PCA's thought, when I didn't want to do that because it was maybe just my thought. So I have to be cognizant of that. But that was one.
Well, you're representing PCA. So even if it's your thought, if it's in line with PCA, I mean, it's okay. Yeah. We'll take credit for your thoughts. That's fine. That works for us.
But yeah, I thought that was well. Especially for like the for the different things like the toolkits and I guess the slide 34 and 35, the tools. I tried to really just put them in my own words and how I would understand them. Just instead of necessarily going through the script, but overall I thought it made sense.
Yeah, no, I like going off script a little bit. I mean, I think it brings out more of your personality. The PowerPoint is really just supposed to be for visual learners, and we're actually revising the PowerPoint to be coming out this fall to have a lot less slides and a lot less words on the slides so that it can be a lot more of your experiences getting into it. So you're kind of in a funky spot because you're being trained with this one, and then in the fall we're going to have a new one rolling out. But you'll have all this prep going on in your head, which is good.
I noticed.
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say I noticed myself talking a lot on the tools for effective receivable feedback, and I was like really trying to find a way to engage you all. So I tried with the if-then statements, but that's like can be a little long for the facilitator, and I try to talk as little as possible when I facilitate and get the group talking. Yeah, I have some ideas for you about that section too, because I noticed you were getting us more engaged in the beginning, and then towards the end it was like, here we go. So I'm sure Molly and Jake might have some ideas for you too, but I have some suggestions. So but I would love to hear, since Molly's never met you before, if you were at this part of the workshop with Harris, do you have what did you really like about what he did, and do you have any suggestions for him moving forward?
Yeah, so I took some notes down. So one, I thought your sense of humor was great. You were able to kind of be familiar and comfortable and joke around a little bit without it being too familiar. I love the if-then statements that you had us each go do. I thought that was really good. As much as you can, ask questions. Sometimes what I do with the tools or whatever is, have any of you ever tried this before? Has anyone had success with this? Can you give me an example of what you've done? As opposed to me going through and explaining them all, or does anyone recognize, what do you think this is? Sometimes that helps because often the coaches have a lot of ideas and they really like hearing from each other. Yeah. One thing that I noticed is when it came to the e-tank, you didn't explain, and I thought your explanation of what fills and drains tanks was really helpful, but sorry.
You okay, Kelly?
Sorry, Kelly's.
I'm sorry. My basement's flooding again, apparently. Hold on. I'll look at it in a minute. Sorry.
One thing I realized at one point was that you hadn't really talked about the whole e-tank concept of like it's like a gas tank in a car or whatever it may be. I mean, some people talk about it being like a cell phone charge, like battery. Like when you're empty, like what fills your tank, what drains your tank. So kind of explaining that illustration a little bit before you dive into ignoring and sarcasm, and you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I felt like all of a sudden you were into it before you really explained it. But I liked a lot of what you seem comfortable with the material. You seem to understand the tools, understand the resources. The one thing I've done that I think helps with the 5-to-1 is I will actually try to give, because a lot of times, coaches will be like 5-to-1. Every time I want to tell them to like, don't use your, left hand, I have to tell them 5 things, So I'll kind of joke with it, be like, look, I know that seems like a lot. We're not talking about, 5 verbal things. And I love that you really emphasize the nonverbals as being part of it. Yeah. I will try to give a specific example. All right. If I'm trying to get a kid to, not use their left hand when they're shooting a basketball, and I may say, so I'm gonna bend down to their level, make eye contact, smile, and I explain what my 5-1 might look like, just to kind of put it out there as an explanation. I think that sometimes helps it to in their minds, like, oh, okay, I get that.
That makes sense.
A picture, or even ask if any one of them want to try it. Like if you realize you've been talking a lot, anyone willing to give it a shot? Like what might you do 5 to 1? Like what would that look like?
That makes sense.
Anytime you feel like you're talking a lot, feel free to ask the crowd questions. And oftentimes, especially if you do it at the beginning, later on they'll talk more.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, you really know the material. It looked good. So
cool. Thank you. Very helpful feedback as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Molly. Jake, how about you?
I'll just add to that thought, because that's the exact same thought I had, was that it can be really powerful and a nice aha moment for the coaches when they see that it's not, oh, I got to find 5 nice things to say about this kid, but like show them all the ways, like thank them for coming to practice on time, for remembering their cleats, like any chance you get to get that positive.
Yeah.
Then when it's time to deliver the negatives, you've already created this positive atmosphere. They're going to be receptive to it.
Right.
Getting on their eye level is a positive. Using a nickname, an appropriate touch in the right place. So like Molly said, like I get on their level. That's 1. I say, hey, slammer. That's 2. Positive touch here. That's 3.
Yeah.
Right. So then you can kind of go through. So this isn't impossible. This is very easy to do. It's about remembering to be positive when you can and recognizing those things. Right. I think those are really helpful, and coaches say, yeah, I can. That's not too bad. I can do that. Right.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the only thing that was my wish for you, was like to really explore that more. But yeah, the mastery of the content, I was really impressed, man. Like you've obviously put a lot of work into this.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, like you're speaking the language. Like it's awesome. It's just really cool to hear it come out. Like it sounds like it's second nature to you.
Yeah.
You're not messing up dual goal coach, or like everybody's. I've heard the craziest things come out.
Right.
So I appreciate all the work that you put into it. So thanks.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Can I add one more quick thing? Do you mind?
Sure.
I just wanted to say to the 5 to 1 point. One thing I've said before is it's an overall ratio. It's not for every single time you speak to the kid. Right. It has to be that way. So to Jake's point, those things that you say at the beginning of practice or whatever, get coaches to focus on their overall ratio being about 5 to 1. If it's 1 to 1 right now, or 1 to 6, try to just move closer to it. So you can kind of frame it in a way that they feel like it's attainable.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
We have a friend here. He coaches youth hockey. He's a big PCA guy, and he always, when he talks to coaches about 5 to 1, he says, "Because you got to get your 1, man." Like, you know why you do all those positives? So you can get your 1. He looks at it that way, because he's like, I can't wait to get my 1 in there, but I got to build them up first. So funny.
I've had coaches say, I get my 30 positives already because I got way more than 1.
Yeah, right.
Right. So Harris, I agree. And I think you just seem very comfortable with the material. So most of the comments that I wrote down are more of just ideas for you, just things to do in workshops live, because it's a different format than when you're in this. This is much safer than when you're out with live people, because you don't know what they're going to say. You don't know what they're going to do. So a couple things. I really like the way, I just like your phrasing of things, the way you talk. You said a couple words that just stuck out for me. Like, you have to be intentional and you have to embody this. Like, that's part of the culture of what we're trying to do here. We're not just shoving information down people's throats. We're trying to tell them, like, we want you to be a positive coach. We want you to be a double goal coach, and we need you to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So I like the way you did that. I like the way that you had, verbally, non-verbally, as Molly said, it's important that people realize sometimes that seems like a silly exercise, but then when you have coaches look around, sometimes I'll have one side of the room do it and the other side of the room watch. And that's even powerful when you've got a whole side of the room doing the nonverbals like this. And then I've even said freeze, and their hands are up in the air like this. And I have them, I say on the other side of the room, okay, stop, look at their faces, look at their bodies. Imagine being a 5-year-old on the mound. That's what they're going to remember. And, and the coaches that are standing there like, and they freeze. I'm like, look at yourself, look at what you're actually doing. And the kids you coach are 7, like, come on. And I talk about how you said, like, 90% is nonverbal, but it's also, we remember nonverbals a lot more. Nonverbals stick with kids. So that's kind of just a way to make it a little bit more impactful too.
That makes sense.
The other thing is that anytime the coaches in your workshop can practice these principles and these tools, the better. And actually just today, driving home, I was like, oh, this is going to be great for a PCA workshop. So my daughter passed her learner's permit for driving this morning.
Yeah.
And they hand her a book as she's getting home that have lessons on driving, like lesson number 1, lesson number 2. So she's like, Mom, all I have to do is read this whole book and I know how to drive a car.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you think so? And, you know, we joke about that. But as PCA trainers, if we just tell all these coaches how to coach, it doesn't mean they're going to know how to coach.
Right.
They actually have to do it. They have to practice it.
Yeah.
So anything in a workshop that they can do and practice, like you said, turn to somebody and tell them an if-then statement. They're going to remember that when they get out to practice tomorrow.
Right.
Because instead of saying, strike the ball with your laces or get out, stay out wide, they're going to say, if you stay out wide, then you're going to be more open for the ball. If you hit with your laces, the ball's going to be hard. So it's just, they just did it the day before, the week before, they're going to remember it and they're going to do it.
Right.
So for example, when you were doing empty things that drain the tank and things that fill the tank, you know, I think going through the negatives is fine. You kind of went down that list, but then when you went through the fillers, tank fillers, the truthful and specific praise, appreciation, listening, nonverbals, have them practice that. How do you praise somebody? Using truthful and specific praise, not just saying. So I tell them, I want you to turn to somebody next to you that just messed up whatever sport you want to do. And I want you to praise them for something they did well, even though the outcome was unsuccessful.
Right.
Don't say the word good job. Take good job out of your vocabulary. You know, it's hard for people to do that, but it gets to the point where being truthful and specific, the kids will see right through it. If you say, oh, Billy, you did great, when he just struck out, he's not going to think he did great. Right. But if you say, you know what, your stance was awesome, your swing was, you know, I really liked the way you looked at the pitch, you chose the right pitch, you know, that's all truthful and specific. So that's something you can have in practice.
Okay.
In a workshop. The other thing, and this is a picky Ruben thing, but I have to speak on his behalf. He always points out that people a lot of times will say 5-to-1 is positive to negative, and it's actually intentionally positive to criticism. You said it once, you said it real quick, like your positive to negative ratio.
Yeah.
Because if we call it the positive negative, it means we're giving coaches permission to be negative, which we're not. We're giving them permission to critique or to give feedback, corrective feedback, but it's the positive to critical feedback ratio.
Yeah.
So just being really careful about the phraseology there, because sometimes it just flows out easily and we don't even pay attention to it. Little tiny picky things.
Cool.
The other suggestion I would have is that when you had us read the Phil Jackson quote, I thought it was funny the way you do that. Because, I mean, if you're up in New York doing workshops and you mention Phil Jackson as a legend, they laugh at you. So I like how you said that. Like, some of us are better. I heard somebody one time say, you know, some of us are better as coaches than we are as presidents. You might have you should have just stayed with that gig and not even gone on. But I like the way you kind of joked about that. But I would even have them watch the video first, because the video has even more in it. And then if you want to get them in groups to say, what resonated with you, after, you know, between the quote and the video, what resonated with you?
Right.
So I would just wait till after the video too, because the video is really supposed to be like a springboard to give you a break for a second, let them hear from somebody else so that it can spark a discussion or spark a thought or have them, you know, think about something differently. So I would wait, show them the video and then ask. Last suggestion I had is, where is it? Oh, the receivable feedback slide, which is slide 39. Again, this is a great opportunity. You did the scenario. They talked about the scenario. I liked it. Not 39. That's not right.
34.
34. Yeah. Sorry. This is where every workshop I do, and I stole this from Dwayne Wilkins, who's a trainer in New Jersey. He gets them into groups of 5. And if there's only 10 people at the workshop, he gets them in 2 groups. Okay. I want you to get with 4 other people. And they get in a group of 5, and he has them in a group of 5. Each one of you take a different one of these bullet points. And I want you to either act it out, how you would act it out with to your group, pretend that your group's your team, or just explain how you would use it. So one person does avoiding non-teachable moments, and they take a minute and they explain where are the worst moments to try to criticize somebody and why that's such a tough thing to do. Yeah. Criticizing in private. He'll actually ask, okay, person number 2, you're going to do criticizing in private. And they actually have to role play. Like, we don't mean pull the kid to a side and blast them. You know, how would you give the kid feedback in private? Right. Asking permission. And it's really cool because it gets all 5 people engaged. And if they have problems, they have that little yellow flag that says page whatever in your book, kid-friendly person. They can use their book to help them. But when I saw him do that at a workshop, I was like, that activity took about 3 minutes. He got everybody engaged. And in their groups, everybody got a chance to practice.
Good idea.
Yeah. So I thought, just if you find yourself talking too much, you know, using groups to have them teach themselves and use examples from their own sport.
I love that idea.
That was another idea. Yeah. The other thing, the criticism sandwich, I was going to say the exact same thing that Molly and Jake did. I love their feedback on that. The other one is just to, plug the book. These tools and these principles have a lot of references back to the book. And Molly's going to do a really good job at selling the books to the partners. So we want to make sure that they know that the book isn't just a party gift. It's something that you can have them, take a note, dog ear this page, open to 34, look at where all these we're giving you 4 examples. There's 9. There's 9 different tools in here. And that's why in the course I have you, write 3 sports specific examples for each tool.
Right.
Because there's some that aren't mentioned in the workshop, but you might have somebody ask a question and say, you know what, there's another tool in there that you might want to look at called, token rewards. Take a look at what that is and things like that. So just another thought. Last thing, again, a ribbon picky thing. It's called the 3 principles of PCA.
Yeah, I know. I messed that up.
So it's principles, not competencies.
Yeah, I had a brain fart.
That's fine. You can brain fart all you want. Yeah. As Jake said, we've had people call them a lot worse than double goal coaches. So I have to
triple threat competitor. You're like, no.
I know. I have to. It's funny because every time I have to represent my inner Ruben because every time he's on these hangouts, I know I'm like, oh, he's gonna say that. Oh, he's gonna say that. Positive Coaching Association. We've heard a lot.
Yeah, so, I'm sure.
But Harris, I don't feel like you need to be on a hangout anymore. I think the best thing for you to do is be out with coaches because that's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
So, and I know I already sent you the list of a lot of the workshops, and I know you're going to be out of town for a little bit. But we'll keep sending that to you. Congratulations! I'm going to consider you an associate trainer, and we'll get you out to live workshops. Yeah.
Thank you.
We can. So the first step is for you to do. You would do like half of a workshop with a trainer. So the other trainer might open up the workshop. You would do filling the emotional tank and Elm Tree Mastery, and then they would close it out. That way you can get to see a little bit of their style. They can give you a little bit of feedback. Perfect. And then we go from there. If the next one, the last thing you do before you get certified is you do a whole workshop by yourself with a certified or a staff person like Molly or Jake, or it can be another trainer, and then you're on your own. So
cool. Yeah. So how many like associate workshops would I do?
So usually I would say, I mean, the way that the perfect world is for you to just do half of the workshop once, and then the next one is for certification where you would do the whole thing. That's, as long as everything seems fine. It's funny because there's a lot of times where the mentor trainer will say, oh, I think Harris is ready to do the solo certification workshop. And I'll get back to you and say, hey, the trainer thinks you're great. You can do it all on your own. You're like, can I do one more? I'm not quite ready yet. It's funny how many associate trainers tell me they want more practice than we think they need. Yeah. So I would say there's a lot of workshops coming up. And when are you going to be away?
I'm away August 12th to 25th.
Okay. So I'll send you the list. I mean, the best case scenario is for you to be doing the Double Goal Coach 1 workshops. We have, lots of other workshops, but it's easiest if we get out to this one because this is the one you're trained in. But if there's another one that pops up that's similar to this, or that you're interested in doing a little bit of extra legwork, you don't have to go through a course again to get trained in the next workshop. This is the core workshop. So from here on out, if there's another workshop that you want to get certified in, you just contact Molly or contact Jake or myself, and I'll send you the resources, and it's sort of a self-taught model. And then we just have you walk through it with one of us before you do it. But we want to get you certified in this one first.
Perfect. That makes sense. And then how does the payment work how does that work?
So after you become a certified trainer, you will, Sonia DeWitt is our trainer manager. So she'll reach out to you after I say, congratulations, Harris is, officially certified. She'll reach out to you and onboard you, which is like a half an hour phone call with her. And she'll have you fill out a W-9 form and everything that you need. She'll get you in the system. And so each time that you do a workshop, you get paid $150 a workshop plus mileage. I think it's 45 cents a mile or something like that.
Somewhere around 45, something like that.
45.5 cents a mile or something. Or train fare or whatever it is to get wherever you need to be.
Not enough, but we try to do something for you.
Yeah, we do something. So, and so you would just go on. We have a workshop manager system. You would just look at the system and you would apply for the workshops that you're available for. And then Sonia is the one that will, speak to Molly and Jake and get you scheduled for it. And then we'll get you out. So
cool. So that's
sort of how the process works.
So that's once I go shadow someone X amount of times and then do one and get signed off. And then that happens, right? You actually get paid the first time that you do it by yourself. So
The associate trainer workshop where you're shadowing somebody else, we don't pay you for that one yet because that's still considered training. But then when you do your first workshop solo, even though you have a mentor trainer there, we pay you for that one too.
Okay, so is that technically the sign off, or that's the one after the sign off?
That's the sign off. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep. I call it a certification workshop. So you're doing the whole thing from beginning to end, and we just give you a mentor trainer, or as I said, a staff person like Molly or Jake there, just for support in case anything goes haywire.
Okay,
Which it never does in PCA workshops, but you never know.
Cool. Okay, that was helpful. I wasn't sure on the process.
Yeah. And let me just ask, since I have Jake and Molly on the phone, do you have access to a projector at all? Or
I have my own that I'd be happy to lend out to trainers around here.
okay. I didn't know. Harris, do you have one, or do you have access to one?
No.
Okay. It's just something that I just like to keep track of when I send new people out to, and as I said, Molly has one. Usually the chapters have enough that you can use, or the partner themselves. A lot of times they're in high schools and they have AV equipment, but I just wanted to check.
Yeah. Usually when I give presentations for work, I just like put it in a flash drive and then put it out. So.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time they can do that, but there's times when you're like literally in a dugout in a little youth baseball place, and they're lucky if they have, chairs, let alone a screen.
There's part of I don't know if you've gone on this, part of the process is you call the partner organization at least 3 days before the workshop.
Yeah.
But part of that is talking about AV, like, what do you have for me? What do I need to bring? So it wouldn't be like, oh crap, I'm going to workshop today, I don't have a projector. We know a couple of days out that we need to get you the projector on this day or whatever, right?
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
Most of them will have something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And Sonia will go through all that with you when she does your onboard call.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll send out an email that just says all the details of the next step, and it'll have Molly's email and Jake's email and everything that you need to be connected to your local chapter. And I'm still your point person until you get official. Actually, I'm your point person forever because I'm the lead trainer in DC. But if you have any questions about anything, just feel free to reach out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate all you taking some time today.
Yeah, thanks for all your effort. We're excited to have you on the team.
Yeah, excited to have you a part of the team, man.
Awesome. Looking forward to it, and talk to y'all soon, I'm sure.
Jake's excited to have more baseball guys on his team.
Yeah.
See ya.
Take it easy.
Bye, guys. Bye, Kelly.
Take care. Bye-bye.